the cells in your body, the marvel of your body, from the great, huge dimension down to the smallest little details, all of this is from the maker of heaven and earth, God the Almighty Father. Well, if God knows the sky so well, and He knows the cells so well, how does He know me? How can I escape being known by God? I don't even know myself. How often am I confused about how I feel or what I think about something? But who knows me as I really am? God does. Because I come from Him. He made, as it says in Psalm 139, one of the most beautiful psalms in the Bible, you have knit me together in my mother's womb. You know when I sit and when I stand. With all my ways you are familiar. And so what this very statement of the Creed says right from the start is, when we say, I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen, one of the things that follows from that is that God knows me through and through. And I can never, ever, ever escape His knowledge. I say that because that's what Adam and Eve tried to do. The problem we have, going back to the garden of the very beginning, and this is what the Bible tells us, is that when Adam and Eve sin, when they turn away from God, when they decide to be gods themselves, and we'll see more about this when we gather together in the future, Adam goes and hides in the garden. And it says God comes in search of Adam and Eve. He tracks them down. And He calls them, He finds them. They can't hide from Him. And He calls Adam out of the darkness, and He says, where are you, is what He says. Where are you? See, God knows the answer to that question, because He's found him. He knows where he is. But the question is for Adam to say, where am I? And this is the question for you and for me, always. This big question right from the beginning, where are you? That's the question God's going to put to us until the day we die. Where are you? And so the way it comes to me is, where am I? Where am I going? Where am I going? Where have I been? My God knows me through and through. And He knows me. It's like, when there was a time when you and I didn't exist. And then in an instant, we're here in the womb of our mother. At that moment, God knows us into being. He knows, how we know just in the cells that we have right there from the beginning, we have the whole story of our development, right? Biologically. All the way we're going to look, the size of our ears, the color of our hair, our certain amount of our intellectual capacity, or some of our emotional, all of this is there, and God knows the whole thing right from the start. Right from the start. Now there's another consequence of that right off the bat. See, we're just at the first lines of the Creed here, but the other line of that is that if God knows me through and through, way more than I know myself, why does He want me to be here? When I think of how mixed up I get sometimes, and how confused I get, and how selfish I am, how terrible I can be to people, why in the world does God put up with me? I can't even put up with myself. God does. Because His knowing, when we say that God knows me, He loves me. Everything He knows, He loves. And why is that? Because in making heaven and earth, why did God make heaven and earth? This is not, we don't say this in the Creed, but the gospel discloses it. He made us because He loves us. And for no other reason. Simply, He loved us into being. And He keeps us in being. And He will keep us in being. That's the whole purpose of God's creation, is love. And it all comes down to, this is your life and my life, right here. Okay? Now, we go on, so like we started there at the Creed with Jesus. We believe in Jesus because that's the enunciation of the good news. Then Jesus reveals the Father, doesn't He? All in His teaching and His parables and His living, He comes to tell us who the Father is, the Father that creates us, that loves us. And He says, the Father and I are one. that God is one. We believe in one God, not three gods, one God, in three persons, as we'll say later. But then Jesus reveals the Father, and then he sends the Holy Spirit. And so we say at the end of after we talk about Jesus in the Creed, we say, we believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son. He is one with the Father. He is worshiped, glorified. He is God. He's not some secondary being. He is God every bit as much as Jesus and the Son and the Father are. And he has spoken through the prophets. And so the idea of the Holy Spirit is the one that tells us, that reveals who Jesus is and who the Father is. And consequence of that is who we are, who you are and who I am. How do we come to know who we are? God shows us by the Spirit that he sent into our hearts. The Spirit reveals Jesus and the Father, and so it's as if, one way, it just occurs to me right now, it's as if, we go into a dark room, and then suddenly there's a light that it's the face of Jesus. And then Jesus points to the Father, and both of them send the Spirit. And when the Spirit comes, we see the Father and the Son looking at us in love. And that's when we know who we are. That's the only way we know who we are, is because we're standing in the presence of God as our true selves. Okay? So the Spirit then is the one who shows us the Father and the Son, and who speaks through the prophets. And as we said, just make reference to St. Peter, he's the one that changes everything. When the Spirit comes, we have the courage to be ourselves. Okay? As St. Peter did. Now, the final article in the Creed is, we believe in the Church. One holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. And that's a whole separate topic. I'm not going to treat that today, except to say that for us, you can't take that apart. You can't leave out the Church as a Catholic believer. There are those that do. And in fact, there are those who say they believe in Jesus, but they don't want to have anything to do with the Church, right? Do you know people like that? They never come to church. They say, well, I can go out in the mountains and pray to God myself. What do I need to come to church for? I can go directly to God. I don't need the church. Well, this is for us. If we confess the Creed, we can't say that. The church is absolutely essential, because that's the way we know who God is, only through the church. This is something we can examine at greater length later. I just want to point it out that it's rooted in the Creed. All the things that we're going to say later in our confirmation preparation are rooted in the Creed here. Okay? So we'll go back to that again and again, I hope. Okay? Now, I just want to point out a couple little things, and then I'll conclude, sort of general things about the Creed. First of all, you'll notice that the Creed talks about time, fullness of time. Jesus is the fullness of time, as the Scriptures tell us. He is the fullness of time. And so, when we encounter Christ, we encounter the past. He was born of the Virgin Mary in a particular time, and he suffered, died, and was buried. And that suggests that takes us to think about my past. And then he's here in the present. I am with you always. Always I will be with you. So he has gone. He will come to judge the living and the dead. So all aspects of our time, the time of our life, are embraced in the Creed. That our past, our present, and our future. Now think about it. Let's think for a second. Let's think that you were not a Christian right this minute. What in the world would you think about where your life is going? You know that you're going to die. What's going to happen then?